Guys, have you heard the theory borrow lifespan? It is a really evil sorcery means you take away others' lifespan to extend yours, then the victim will die in advance. But such evil deeds will get harsh punishment for both the borrower and the psychic, so people don't usually use it. However, there are always mad and unscrupulous people willing to do such thing, and even borrow the life of their loved ones. Okay, if you like my video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. Your support means everything to me. Let's start. I used to work at a traditional Chinese medicine hospital, and there were two branches under it. In the spring of 2010, I was assigned to one of the branches for training. This branch was located in a village surrounded by picturesque mountains. However, in this beautiful place, something happened that still leaves me with mixed emotion when I recall it. On the first day of training, my colleagues from the branch eagerly attended their lectures. Among them, I noticed a woman in the middle of the front row with an unconventional style. As the weather was getting warmer, most people were wearing thin long-sleeve shirts, but she had on a down jacket, leather gloves, and a neat hat. Her complexion was off, with sparse hair and a pale face. At a glance, I sensed she had a deficiency of young energy. I spontaneously introduced some methods to nourish young energy, and she listened attentively. After the afternoon session, the branch leaders warmly invited me to stay for dinner. After a few rounds of drinks, they started discussing various hospital matters, and coincidentally, the conversation shifted to the peculiarly dressed woman, mentioning that she sustained her life by borrowing lifespans. From their conversations, I learned that the woman's surname was Qin, 43 years old. Her husband had died in a car accident 5 years ago, and she now lived with her daughter. Qin had been working in the hospital for 15 years, known for being frugal and cruel. Her frugality extended to avoiding spending even a penny on daily necessities, and she even brought drinking water from the hospital. Her cruelty was demonstrated when a small sparrow accidentally flew into her office one day. Disregarding others' opinions, she grabbed a book and threw it at the frightened sparrow. The bird fell to the ground, and she picked it up, carried it outside, and ruthlessly stomped on it, cursing a few words. When asked why she did that, she claimed the bird was a flying disaster and needed to be killed to dispel it. 7 years ago, during a routine health examination, she was diagnosed with severe breast hyperplasia. Knowing the severity of it, she was afraid, but she opted to treat herself with herbal tea instead of buying medicine to save money. A year later, when re-examined, it had progressed to breast cancer, and subsequent pathological analysis confirmed malignancy with distant lymph node metastasis. To save her life, Qin had surgery for tumor removal. However, during her hospital stay, she argued with doctors and nurses over various charges, leading them to dislike her and discharge her eagerly against the medical advice. With cancer spreading, she needed periodical hospital visits for chemotherapy. Since lymph node metastasis falls into an advanced stage of cancer, it couldn't be cured, only extending her lifespan. As the treatment progressed, her family's expenses increased, and her emotions became more volatile. One day, after a heated argument with her family, she suddenly developed symptoms such as sore throat, toothache, mouth ulcers, frequent urination, and pain. After taking anti-inflammatory drugs for half a month, the symptom did not disappear. Then a hospital visit revealed her bladder cancer. What's worse, the doctor informed she had a maximum of 2 years left. In the last 2 years, she didn't go to work at all, actively seeking various methods to cure her illness, be it traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine, or ethnic medicine. She tried them all, yet her health continued to deteriorate. In the end, someone introduced her an old toyist who claimed he could lend her life. The method was that she had to borrow lifespan from a family member, and the family member had to do it voluntarily. Moreover, it wasn't a one-to-one exchange, but rather a tenfold return. This means the borrower will be extended by 1 year, while the age of the person being borrowed will be shortened by 10 years. It can be said the price is very high. After a prolonged inner struggle, she explained this matter to her parents, who were both in their 60s. Her mother willingly offered to lend her lifespan, and they proceeded with the toast ritual, exchanging a year of life. The ceremony was a success. The next morning, her mother aged significantly. The hair became sparse and white, eyelids drooping, wrinkles doubling. As for herself, she felt all her ailments vanish. She went to check in the hospital. The result showed, despite cancer cells still present, they neither grew nor caused discomfort. After 2 days, she returned to work. However, the roller coaster of life and death didn't prompt her to reflect. She remained as frugal as ever. Aware that borrowing lifespan indefinitely wasn't an option, she worked frantically over the years, aiming to earn more for her daughter while she was alive. A year quickly passed. On the 357th day, Qin woke up and found herself back to square one. Nosebleeds, abdominal pain, weakness, fever, and a series of unbearable symptoms. Learning of her suffering, her mother, filled with sympathy, decided to lend her another year of lifespan. She saw the old tourist again. Seeing this, the tourist warned her mother, "You're in your 60s now. Adding 10 years means you will not live for many more days. Life, aging, sickness, and death are inevitable for any living being. Forcefully changing fate will have a significant negative impact. Are you sure you want to do this again?" But despite the warning, her mother chose to lend another year to her daughter. Then the old tourist conducted another ritual. The next day, although the daughter no longer suffered from the previous symptoms, her physical strength and mental state were not as good as before. As for her mother, who was originally in her 60s, now appeared like someone about to be buried. Her cerebellum atrophied, rendering her unable to care for herself. Since then, her father had to take care of the mother. Qin would return home every day after work to help with cooking and cleaning, and life seemed relatively peaceful. However, half a year later, her mother passed away in a dream. Qin panicked. That means she had to find someone willing to lend her lifespan in the next 6 months. Unfortunately, her father and 3 younger brothers, who hated her after her mother's death, avoided any contact with her, making it impossible to borrow lifespan from them. At that time, Qin's daughter was already in her senior year of high school, and she wanted to accompany her through the crucial college entrance exams, so she needed to borrow another year of lifespan. Qin began caring for her father every day, hoping to gain his favor. However, her father remained indifferent, determined not to lend her lifespan, wishing her to pass away as a regular person. With only a month left, Qin fainted at work one day. She was rushed to the emergency room, and the doctor said she only had 2 to 3 days left, suggesting her family take her home as the hospital could do nothing more. Her daughter rushed to the hospital and refused to leave, claiming she wouldn't go to school if her mother didn't make it. Despite disliking her, Qin's father eventually compromised for the sake of the child. "It's just 10 years of lifespan. I'll lend it to her." Once again, they saw the old tourist. He questioned, "Mr. Qin, why bother? Is it worth it?" Qin's father sighed and said, "It doesn't matter. Let's begin." After the ritual, Qin miraculously revived as before. The next day, she prepared a meal, ate heartily, took her daughter to school, and on the way back, planned to thank her father. However, her father didn't answer the door. Then she returned to work instead. In the afternoon, Qin's brother called her to their father's home, announcing their father had passed away in extreme agony. Her 3 brothers scolded her, accusing her of selfishness, and eventually they drove her out of their father's house. After dinner, on my way back to the hotel, I received a friend request from her. That night, she shared a lot with me, including her experience of borrowing lifespan. She said, "This is my last year. I have only 2 months left. Besides my daughter, I have no other families now. I want to accompany my daughter more, so I asked the old tourist if I could steal others' lifespan, but he firmly rejected me and even blocked me. I'm desperate for a chance. Since you seem to understand medicine, I wanted to ask if you have any way to extend my life." Of course, I firmly replied, "No." The next morning, during a break between classes, she approached me and asked me to take her pulse. Her hands were cold, her forearms felt damp and cold, and her pulse was weak, filled with a sense of death. And the strangest thing was, she had 3 pulses. It turns out that after borrowing lifespan, her soul energy was heavily consumed. And the worst thing was, Her behavior caused her parents' soul trapped on her and cannot get reincarnation. This information was later explained by someone knowledgeable in these matters. 2 months later, after I finished the course and returned, news of her death spread through our work group. Later, colleagues told me that Qing's death was abrupt. One day she was working and doing household chores normally, and the next morning, she experienced excruciating pain throughout her body. All the accumulated suffering of the past few years seemed to release at once. In the end, she screamed for borrowing lifespan, but eventually passed away in the evening. Cancer cells invaded her entire body within a day, leaving her unrecognizable as a person. I really don't know how to describe this story. As everyone says, in the face of life and death, people can become exceptionally selfish and greedy. She, in exchanges for 2 more years of life, caused the consecutive death of her own parents, and also made her soul unable to reincarnate. How incredibly ruthless! And her mother willingly offered her lifespan twice. Every time I think of it, my feelings become extremely heavy. Perhaps only the mother can love her child unconditionally, even if that child is a scum. But I believe her cancer is closely related to her personality. Traditional Chinese medicine suggests that people who are excessively calculating and burdened with worries are prone to illness, especially tumor. And in modern medical terms, this can be explained as the disruption of bodily functions due to excessive stress. So everyone, let's just relax, live happily, and continue our story. When I was 16, during summer vacation, me and a few buddies took up a part-time job at a glass factory out in the suburbs. The factory had shifts around the clock, and that day we happened to be on the evening shift, from 4 p.m. to the midnight. After work, a bunch of us showered at the factory and headed home together. But halfway there, one of the guys suddenly screamed. We saw him stumbling backward, falling flat on his back. We rushed over to help him, asking what happened. At first, he was shivering uncontrollably, unable to speak. After a while, he stammered out that he saw a disheveled woman. However, we hadn't seen anyone like that, so we thought he was messing with us. He insisted it was real, claiming as he walked with his head down, he suddenly looked up and saw a disheveled woman rushing toward him. She pushed him backward with a resentful look, as if she was going to strangle him. It happened so abrupt that he lost balance and fell down. We teased him, thinking he might be imagining stuff. We helped him up and continued our way home. The next afternoon, when we arrived at his home and asked him to join us for the shift, his mother told us he was sick, running a high fever, and suggested we give him a break. We were just a bunch of kids and didn't pay much attention to it. 2 days later, after another night shift, we all went to the inspection workshop behind the production area. Between the production and inspection areas, there was a wall about 80 to 90 centimeters high. Many people in the factory took a shortcut by walking along this wall to get to the inspection area. We did the same, hopping off the wall into the inspection workshop. As we descended, we heard someone talking behind us. Turning around, it was a supervisor from another production team. She had just washed her hair, which was still wet and draped over the shoulders as she walked along the wall. When she was about to reach the end of the wall, she suddenly fell off. But the wall wasn't that high, so we didn't care much. Maybe she jumped down herself, but after a few minutes without seeing her head pop up from the other side, we got a weird feeling. If she had jumped down, we should have seen her upper body. Something was off, and we hurriedly approached. She was lying there motionless. Just then, some female workers from the inspection workshop passed by. One bold woman nudged the body and, oh my gosh, she wasn't breathing. Then the colleague quickly called the security. At that moment, the guy who fell that night nudged me gently. Looking back, his face was pale and dead-like. Then he pointed at the lifeless body on the ground and said, "That's the disheveled woman who bumped into me that night." Well, it reminds me of the first episode. Long before I didn't understand this phenomenon, but later my friend explained to me that when a person is doomed to die, her spirits will leave before 1 or 2 days. So the resentful woman the boy encountered that night was actually one of her spirits. And that's why you can say they're in the same hairstyle, and maybe her death was so sudden that she walked with a great anger and resentment. My friend died of carbon monoxide poisoning in 2013. It was February, still pretty cold. One evening after work, I got a call from my classmates saying he was gone. They said he shared a rent with his cousin in an urban village. One day he was absent from work and they called to him, but several calls later, they got no response. Concerned, they rushed to his house and only found his cold body, along with his cousin. When I received the news, I quickly informed all the friends in Tianjin, and we all agreed to go back to see him off on his final journey. In our local custom, we had to give white packet to the family as condolence. Back then, I didn't have much cash on me, so I told them to wait while I went to the bank. But when I returned, they were all gone. Then I decided not to go back, and that's when the strange thing started happening. The evening of that day, I had a dream. He and I were playing in our village like when we were kids, and he said, "You run first, and I'll chase you. If I catch you, you have to play with me." Man, that scared the hell out of me. I quickly started running, and he kept chasing me, laughing and saying, "Run, run, run! I'm about to catch you. Come play with me." I ran and ran until I reached the rooftop. I climbed up and lay there, thinking he couldn't find me then. With pounding heart, I woke up from the nightmare. 12 o'clock sharp. The room was dark and silent, nothing strange. Maybe his sudden death struck me heavily and my missing caused the nightmare, so I continued sleeping. However, things never end that easy. The next evening, I dreamed him again. Still, the same place, the same rule. I ran with my full strength and hid on the roof like last time. But shortly after, I heard his footsteps. Peeking from the rooftop, I saw him standing still, looking around and mumbling. I don't know why, my intuition told me I must not be found by him. So I covered my mouth and didn't dare move a bit, praying he would leave quickly. Then I jerked awake. 12 o'clock again. If it was a coincidence last time, then it would be a bit strange to do this twice. With racing heart, I searched on the phone. It said a serial dream indicates high mental pressure or trauma. It convinced me a little, but I decided to wait another day. If it happened again, I must look for a psychic. But he had no intention of giving me a third day. Just when I went on sleeping, the nightmare continued. Still, I was hiding on the rooftop, but this time he wasn't standing on the ground. I started looking around to find him. Suddenly, his laughter burst out in the air. He was standing on the roof of the house opposite me, smirking weirdly. "I see you now. Come down and play with me." My goodness, I woke up in a flash. There was definitely something wrong. And just now I remembered he was going to be buried today. I decided to see him one last time and visited a psychic to ask for help. At the burial site, everything went smoothly at first. But after placing him in the coffin and ready to nail the lid, his ass suddenly started shaking, stood upright, and in his voice said, "Mom, Dad, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you." Immediately, the whole courtyard was terrified. It seemed like she had been possessed, and all of us didn't know what to do. Then a highly respected elder stood next to his coffin and shouted, "If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave at all. Hurry up!" Then his aunt fainted alongside his mom. After the funeral, I told them about my serial nightmare. They were all shocked. They said maybe he was blaming me for not coming back to see him off, and the psychic I visited later confirmed their thought. Fortunately, after the burial, the nightmare stopped. Strange, isn't it? I feel this person is a bit ungrateful. They have been good friends since childhood, and yet he didn't give any condolence money and has no intention of attending the funeral. No wonder he will come to find him. However, I'm curious. If he gets caught in the dream, what will happen? Will he be taken away? Oh, what a dark thought. Okay, that's all for today. Hope you enjoy and like the stories. Also, welcome to give me your like, opinion, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.